Welcome and thanks for joining us. This is CF Guy, and today we are going over a lot of different CrossFit shoes. We're going to do a tiered list of the best shoes for CrossFit. I have had personal experience trying these shoes out. They look worn and weathered, the actual shoes that I've worn in a lot of different scenarios. And I think it's important that before we dive in, we're gonna rank, right, S superior, A, B, C, D for these shoes, that you know that this is based on CrossFit criteria, right? So if this shoe is specifically good for something else, I'm gonna call that out and it's gonna get a lower ranking, and that's why. So let's get right into it. I'll use this first one as a great example. This is a strong shoe. It's called the Infinity, and it's by Nike. And this is the type of shoe that I see a ton of beginners come in and try to sport for CrossFit. It's a great running shoe. You can, pound the marshmallow bottom of this shoe for miles and miles and miles. Great shoe for running. But as soon as you get a barbell overhead, you're gonna be falling over and it's gonna be a real bad day. So this one I would put all the way down in the C tier. It's excellent for a running shoe, but the ZoomX and Infinity Foam is amazing. But you absolutely don't want a kettlebell, dumbbell, or barbell when you have this shoe. So putting that right down in the C tier. Now this next shoe is one that a lot of people are familiar with, and I would put this all the way up in the B tier. I've actually had many different iterations of this shoe. The Metcon has been a staple in the CrossFit community. It's done very well. This one is the Metcon 10. You can see all the sides here. With the Metcon 10, the lace tuck is a quality measure. The bottom guards work really well with the rope. They don't go as high up as a lot of other shoes, and that doesn't matter. It works fine for rope climbing. It works very well for a lot of the barbell cycling that you'd like to do. However, and it has this great ability to customize. I put God First on the back. I love the customization. It's very breathable. However, the main downfall of the 10, it just like with the 9 and the 8 and the 5 and the 4 and the 3, is that this is one of the worst shoes you could possibly select to run in. So if you're running over 200 meters and you have this shoe on, it's going to be clanking like you're in high heels. It's going to be extremely flat and rigid. It has literally like a hard plastic in the bottom of the shoe. So that's why it's not the perfect all-around CrossFit shoe, but right up there. Very great shoe in terms of the different generations of it. I would say 6, 7, 8 were some of the best shoes for Metcon, and I'll show a few of those. So in fact, the 7, I actually bought multiple iterations of the 7. I had a black on black 7. I had a black with gum bottom 7. You can see that I really have worn the snot out of this, but that heel clip all the way through the base was it's still very rigid, but not anywhere near as rigid as the 10. So you could get a little bit more mileage. Maybe you run 300 or 400 with it. Still a horrible shoe to run miles in, but I'll put it right up in the B tier for this number 7. And this was the best lacing system that they ever designed. Nike had the lacing system that it would actually clip down with the Velcro, and then you can Velcro up right over where you put your double knots. So never comes out. And I believe they had the same thing on the 6 and on the 8. So that was a great idea. And they still had the Nike ID customization at that time, did the same thing. So really great shoe, the 7 Metcon. Put that in the B tier. Now they also then moved on to the 8 and the 9 and kind of misses both of them. I actually think this is the 9. So let me see if I can grab you the 8 to show you what I'm talking about. Believe this is the 8. The customization was worse for the 8. the lace lock, they switch so you can't Velcro it down. And you could Velcro it up, but not down. So it wasn't as good. The rest of the shoe is almost exactly the same, except kind of uglier. So they like put this mesh here, and you couldn't edit the mesh. And so I didn't really care for this one. Got the one, wore it for many workouts, but ultimately all the other versions of that Metcon shoe were better. And I believe these are the 9s. And I got 2 colorways of the 9s because I really just, like, again, the Metcons. And the 9s, they had a much more robust rope system. Like, rope system goes all the way up, which it looked kind of cool. More pliability than the 10s throughout the bottom, and work really well. And I got them in white color as well. I think the main performance issues with these, I would put them down to the C tier, because although they're flexible, they have everything that you need in a CrossFit shoe. The running is still unpleasant with these, and it was a little bit more so on the gymnastic movements, because it had you can see how harsh the drop off is for the area that you're kind of the base of your foot would be. And in fact, on this one, I stepped on something and it just damaged the shoe permanently, like right there. And I think that just having 2 different base layers in the bottom part of the shoe creates less rigidity, and it's just not as good of an idea. So that's why I put that version, which I believe is the 9, down to the C tier for the Metcons, the Nike Metcons. All right, now this was one of my very first CrossFit shoes, and a lot of good things to say about this. This is the Reebok Nano X2. So actually, this is saying this is the Nano X1. Yeah, so it's the Nano X1. So this shoe is one of the best shoes that you could use for Murph. It has incredible return on the ground, and yet it still has a low, total angle. Contains everything pretty nicely, just like the Metcons. It's got a single mesh all the way through. 2 major issues with this shoe that I would put it down in the C tier. At first, it was a great starter shoe for CrossFit, but 2 major problems. One, this is not a durable shoe, particularly for rope climbs and any toe box gymnastic movement. You can see that there's this piece that's cut out right here. That's from the rope. It eventually pulled the whole thing out. And then of course it would get kind of like water and dirt in there. So there's no rope guard at all. It just like rips out. Same thing started to happen with the bottom of the shoe. And you can see the chunks taken right out of the front of the shoe. So that is one issue, is that the durability is weak. But the other issue is worse. The other issue is that the top of the heel is so high that it will damage your heel. So it is about 1/2 inch too high, and so it will cut into the back of your leg and create a problem on your heel. So what I did find, I found 2 shoes that are kind of like this, and if you put an insert in, a different insert, it will add a little bit of height, and then it will save your heel. So as long as you got thick enough socks and you put a different insert in, then it's okay. But if you're just buying them stock and going for it, you could have a lot of trouble with the heel, and that can be a problem. If I was to note one other thing that happened to me with these, it's these laces, even when you double knot them, the laces come out. There's no lace lock. There's no spot to put the laces. So the laces they come with don't stay locked. So that could be a little bit of trouble too. Okay, so this is This is a good example of a shoe that not to take into the CrossFit gym ever. So this one, I have a friend named Merrick, and I love hanging out with him. And we have a joke we call this type of shoe a good for nothing shoe. It's good for fashion. It's like, hey, you could walk around in this, or have a night with your friends with the shoe, but just don't take it to the gym. It's not good for that. And in this particular case, this is a Nike Dunk, and the Nike Dunks, they're just extremely flat, and so they're not going to give you any support with anything. They're just a very flat street shoe. So that's why I would put them all the way down in the D tier for CrossFit. Don't bring these around. You're not going to enjoy it. This shoe goes in the same camp for a different reason. And that other reason is that it has too much of a slant. So this is an Air Max. A lot of guys will wear these, particularly to look taller because it's a lot higher in the back, and so it'll make the person look taller than they are, and that's about the value of the shoe. So it's not great for it's not great for lifting because it's too high of a drop, and it's not great for running because it's too high of a drop, and it'll hurt your foot on every other side. So that's just a fashion shoe, right? So put that all the way down in the D tier for those. Okay, now this is going to be a familiar type of shoe to a lot of CrossFitters. These are the Nobles. I have purchased several different types of Noble, and I have one pair that is one of my favorite walking around shoes. These ones I got just for deadlifting, and I would say that was a mistake because the mid courts that I had, they're great for deadlifting, and I didn't need any more ankle support, and it's just too much ankle support. It's very high. So these particular high ones, I would put them down in the C tier. Everything else about the construction of all the Noble shoes is excellent. So the exterior is perfect. The laces tie up nicely, and they don't need anything to lock them because they're that type of lace. The construction of the bottoms doesn't fall apart. It's like a brick, and they have the drop built right into the shoe, and it has a comfortable insole that's built right in, and it doesn't shift, and the rope doesn't cut the shoe. So a lot of things going for the Nobles. Not a great running shoe either. Kind of like the Metcons, they have a rigid and low base, and that's just not what you need for a running shoe. So doesn't kind of give that same versatility, but it does have a lot of other good things that you'd want, and it has applicability to a lot of different wads. All right, now this one is similarly a specialist shoe. This is my favorite lifter. So if we were rating lifters, this and probably the carbon plate lifter would both be up in the S tier. But because we're doing overall CrossFit shoes, it's going to be in the D tier because it's just good for lifting. You don't want to be running in these or doing gymnastic movements or anything else. However, this shoe is by Tier. It's the Squat University collab with Tier, and these are the L2 lifters. They have this nifty pull up for your ankle there. They've got the double strap. You can tie it, and it's just so solid. You can see the bottom. It's very wide. You're going to be able to get your three main points of contact, and you're going to be able to have the wedge that you want for a really great squat. So I would recommend these without reservation for lifting and for nothing else. So when you're doing squats or any of the Olympic movements, these are the way to go. Another specialist shoe, did the mile test in these yesterday. This shoe's in On Cloud, but it's the one that has carbon plate in it here. So it'll give you kind of a little bit more oomph and they're very, very light. I mean, these are as light as the track shoes that I got in high school. So they're very, very light. However, I then went to try to use the kettlebell, picked up a 70-pound kettlebell and just about fell right on my face because it's the rocks back and forth. There's no grip. It has nothing else that you'd want in a CrossFit shoe. It is only good for running. So put this in the D tier as well. I have all of the exact same comments about this shoe. Trained for a marathon in this shoe. They're called the Ghost 16s, Brooks. Brooks is an excellent brand for running. And these are just really great training shoes. Can take them on any terrain you want. Just never felt like you were kind of punishing your back or anything when you were running in these. And it always stays locked tightly, but none of the movements you'd be doing inside with any of the barbells or dumbbells would be good with this particular shoe. So for that reason, this would go into D tier as well for a CrossFit shoe. All right, now let's talk about a true S tier shoe. So this, boy, and I got some stuff from the gym floor on there. So this is a Rad V2, and it is by far the best shoe that I've ever used for CrossFit. It has swell foam for running. It has a drop and the right stability and size for lifting. It has comfortable cushioning. It has the right size heel. The laces, when they tie up, they don't come untied. The tongue is thick enough that it protects the top of your foot. Breathes nice. The rope does not hurt it. So I have nothing negative to say about these shoes. The Rad V2s are the best CrossFit shoe that I've used, and so I really would highly recommend them. Put them up in the S tier. And in fact, I actually got a different colorway for that reason. So this is what the white on white Rad V2s look like. They have some wild colors. I have to admit, when I first got these, I got the gum bottom ones, and I thought, boy, does that look goofy that they have two waves on the side, but I've grown to really like it. Now this is the Rad V1, and these are exceptional shoes as well, but I would put them down into the C tier. They lack the creative design of the second generation, as well as the excuse me, as well as the lightness of the V2s and the breathability. But otherwise, certainly a good shoe, and got everybody really invested in the brand in the beginning. This is a shoe that I would put in the B tier, and it's a running shoe. I believe it's the Viermos, but it's got the Nike React. This is a running shoe, and that's why it's perfect for the Murph, because you need a running shoe that you can also do those basic movements of an air squat and pull-ups and push-ups in that shoe. So the great thing about this is it's got a mid-drop. It's got great reaction for the road, but it also has the shape of a gym shoe instead of just a giant, clip on the back. And so that's why this is a strong shoe for Murph and and for really kind of any other test that's going to have a lot of running, but you're going to need to do CrossFit movements in it. This and the Reeboks are going to be great for situations like that. Put that into B tier. Now these are the Zagama 2s. The Zagama 2s are a trail running shoe, and so they would be a D tier for CrossFit. Horrible for CrossFit. However, these are a really great trail running shoe, and they're extremely light. They're a maximalist shoe. You can see the giant chunk on the bottom of there that you can bounce off. It has an awesome tread, so it's going to be able to pick up anything on the bottom. The lace system is a little bit weird, and they look a little bit goofy because they're a maximalist shoe. They're very tall, but the performance is stellar, and it has the Vibram bottom, so you're not going to have to worry about any issues, anything coming through your shoe to hurt your foot. This is the Noble Midcourt. I don't know if they sell these anymore, but they're my favorite day-to-day walking around shoe, and they're my favorite deadlifting shoe. They're flat, they have a very strong base, nothing hurts the outside of them ever, and they always look the same, and they feel good and they feel flat at all times. They're not great for running, and they're not great for lifting, but for doing the deadlift and for, just walking around with your family, these are a really great shoe. And so I've really appreciated it. In terms of CrossFit shoes, I put this in the B tier, just the mids. And I would say the same for the lows. I never ended up keeping a pair of the lows. Just didn't see the value in them. Now these are the Romaleos. I believe they're the Romaleo 2s. These are a good lifter, but they're not as good as the tiers. And the things that are great about them, they have this strong drop. It's perfectly designed in the bottom. Could be wider, could be a little bit wider, could be a lot more pliable. It's almost like a hard plastic like toy that you get from McDonald's on the bottom. I don't know why it's like that, but it works for the Olympic lifts and nothing else. So you can't, actually these are the 4s, the Romaleo 4s, but they're a great weightlifter, not as good as the tiers, but they have everything else that you need, and they're very versatile for that reason. So you can always just pop into some ollie movements in these. But for CrossFit, all the way down to the D tier. D tier as well. These ones, in terms of relaxation, would be S. These are the Noble slides, awesome slides. My only gripe is that the sides started to come off, and that sometimes I'll get cuts on the top of my feet from wearing them too long. It kind of slides around, but otherwise they're very, very comfortable. They look very sleek, and I've enjoyed them for many years. These are really great recovery items for your feet. All right, now this one is a Ripstop Runner by Noble. And so they would be down in the C tier for CrossFit shoes. Really horrible to do any traditional CrossFit movements in these. They won't hold up, and they won't give you the type of balance that you need. From a running perspective, they are okay. They are too narrow, so when you're cutting, you're going to probably have trouble. Cutting over to a corner. You could have some. I've definitely wiped out a few times. So that's the only problem. But otherwise, it's a good running shoe. It has a good sole to it, and it's got a decent outside, and it doesn't have any bells or whistles like to make it go faster. It's not like the lightest shoe. It doesn't have carbon fiber plate. It doesn't have like any type of special foam or anything. It's just a basic running shoe. So that's just it is what it is for those. And I think they're a little overhyped. Now this shoe is the Tier CXT3. And these are the ones that they were just wearing in the CrossFit games. A lot of the athletes were. Some good things about this, but I really have to put this all the way down in the B tier. I thought it was going to be, the next evolution in science, like they would, because the CXT2s were one of the best CrossFit shoes ever. I'll talk about those in a second, but I'll put them up in the S tier as well, the CXT2s by tier. But the CXT3s, they actually made two things much worse for my experience. So everything else is the same in terms of the quality of the exterior, the single bottom area that holds together well. Rope climb is amazing with these. The construction's great. The laces hold up well, but they changed just a couple things. One of the things that they changed is they took a bunch of the padding out of the shoe. literally like half of the padding in the shoe is gone. And maybe they were trying to make it lighter, but that's a real problem when you're trying to do anything, because now it lacks integrity and it wobbles. So I actually came down from toes to bar, landed, and rolled my ankle in these the very first time I wore them, because they're just flimsy in terms of the material. And that also kind of hurts your foot over time too, more than it does in the highly padded CXT2s. The other change is that they, just like Reebok had, they put this heel area in the back way up high, so it cuts into your heel. So unfortunately, I have to wear like extra tall socks, or like try to switch out the insole. You know, it's just not worth the effort to try to fix that. And so those couple things sadly made the CXT 3s not as good as the 2s for me, and not really that great of a shoe. The one other change that I did notice is even the tongue of the shoe is lightweighted, and that makes the roof of your foot, you know, the roof of the shoe and your foot can have a problem then. So that's kind of my feelings on the CXT 3s. Now the CXT 2s, I love the CXT 2s, and I only have one problem with them. I even got 3 colorways. So this one is the first one I got. It's got the gum bottom, which looks awesome. It's got the great spot for the rope climb. They had the wider, it was advertised as a wider toe box. I know it actually wasn't a wider than the Metcons, but it's still wide enough that it feels good and feels better than a lot of the other shoes. These perform for everything that you need. They've got the right drop, they've got the right breathability, and the padding is fantastic. The padding is all throughout there, and I even like the front where they have that kind of clip there, so that you don't have any issue with your laces catching on anything. The one thing that breaks down over time is the mid part of the heel. There's some type of plastic in the mid part of the heel, and that like hard plastic breaks. So you can see how it's all scrunched up there. After a few months, it just kind of gets to be all jacked up in the middle, and then all of the padding falls down into there. And so that's a bit of a bummer, but I would still say the CXT2s by tier are superior class shoe, S tier all the way, one of the best shoes you could buy for CrossFit. I even bought them in this Starlight ghost color, and they were really great. I put a ton of miles on that. And then I also bought a pair of the same ones from Box Basics, and I did have an issue with these, an additional issue. So they didn't, when they produced these, they didn't glue down the insole like the right way, or some other issue happened in the front of the shoe so that it wasn't secured right. So I would wear these, at the airport, just kind of walk around on work trips, right? And eventually the insole of both of the shoes, the whole front of it started to just slip back. So it would slip back, and parts of it would come off, and the whole front of it eventually just gave out. So I was just basically walking with no insole on the front of my toes, which was horrible. So I basically have retired this colorway of them for that reason. All right, just a couple left. This is another example of a shoe that it's great, and it's just not for CrossFit, right? So these are great shoes for indoor, great shoes for walking around in, and they're just they're flatter than CrossFit shoes would be, right? So these are the Nike Street Gatos, but they have a unique design that's good for that. So I put them in the D for CrossFit. All right, the final shoe. This one is the CXT2 Elite by Tier. So when these came out, they were advertised as the best thing since sliced bread. And I fell for it, right away. I was like, that's amazing. I need that. Let's apply carbon fiber plate technology to CrossFit shoes. It'll be incredible. And so I bought a pair. I had to do like the return and everything because this was a really bad idea to build these half of a size off of the other CXT2s. Why would you do that? So they were built as half of a size off, and so neither of the sizes actually fit me. So then I have to have a size that's a little bit too scrunched, and then I'm trying to use a fiber plate underneath it, and it just didn't work out. So they're still a good shoe. The construction is phenomenal all the way throughout. I think that the sizing issue is my main problem. The lace system, the laces that came with them are not as good as the regular CXT2s. So I think they should have just used the original. And the plate return does absolutely squat for almost any movement that you'd legitimately be doing. I think that the only time that I ever imagined that it might be helping me was when I was doing lateral burpee over the bar. Possibly it might have had a spring, but it's just not worth it to have that much more additional rigidity in the bottom of your CrossFit shoe. So I would put these in the B tier for that. And I think that the heart behind these was really great, the idea, and it just wasn't executed very well. So that's why I put these babies in the B. Awesome. Well, thank you for spending a bit of time with me today. These aren't anything except my musings on my own shoes, and I am hopeful that it'll help you to select shoes that will be great for you for CrossFit, and that you'll have some heads up on some of the kind of issues that you might be able to find if you use some of those shoes. So really appreciate you spending the time, and please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.